This is a bloody good one, isn't it? The price is up 6.7%. I can't see a negative anywhere for any of the commodities on offer.
No, I think they're running out of green ink on this one, to be honest. It's up across the board, mate.
Why would people be interested in what you're doing?
I think they realise that the trajectory that the planet's on has to be changed, or had to be changed.
Hey everyone, welcome into another edition of the Rex Daily Podcast. Now coming up for you today, Stu Davison from HighGround Dairy in the United States. He's talking about what happened to the GDT this week, both from a technical glitch point of view and also from a results point of view, so stay tuned for that. Plus, Peri Drysdale from Untouched World joins us as well today. The challenges facing sustainable fashion. So stay tuned for all of that stuff here on the Rex Daily Podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. All right, we finally have the numbers in for the GDT overnight. There was that technical glitch. So we've got our man Stu Davison back from HighGround Dairy in California at the moment. Stewie, this is a bloody good one, isn't it? The price is up 6.7%. I can't see a negative anywhere for any of the commodities on offer.
No, I think they're running out of green ink on this one, to be honest. It's up across the board, mate. It's absolutely stonking. And to be honest, super unexpected to be this strong, considering the fundamentals, which we've talked about ad nauseum over the last few months. But yeah, we'll take a good one while we can. There is not a negative sign on the page.
No, some very impressive performances too. I mean, you just look at whole milk powder, that's up 5.3%. You look to skim milk up 10.6%. Same for mozzarella. Butter's up 8.8%. Cheddar 3.8%. They're all up, mate. So yeah, it's yeah, as you say, bloody interesting.
Yeah, bloody interesting. And when you think about the fact that the GDT auction basically broke on the back of this auction, these price increases are just sort of a part of the whole story we've been dealing with today. Massive influx of the market, of the physical price, the auction breaking, everyone trying to understand why markets are going where they are. And to be honest, we don't actually have the answer on the exact why right now. The fundamentals, as I mentioned before, remain exactly the same. There's lots of milk. And to be honest, the buy side of this auction sort of is slightly confusing. And for reference, I haven't had as long as normal to sort of digest these results as I have or usually have. We've sort of had this dropped in our lap in the last couple of hours, considering the technical issues GDT had. But, just off the top numbers, European buyers managed to buy more total volume than Middle Eastern buyers. So we actually had Middle Eastern buyers step out, compared to normal. Usually they're about third. And the North Asian buyers, they topped the auction, but it looks like they weren't as dominant as normal, with Southeast Asian and Oceania buyers, and they're buying a pretty decent chunk as well. So that sort of shift in regionality is definitely the driver of this. But again, the markets are very, very volatile at the moment, and we seem to be catching a lot of the sort of trend of the wider markets and the dairy markets.
So two things. Firstly, why did the Europeans come to the table in a buying sense so vociferously this time? And also, do we know what happened with the GDT glitch? Did they give you any update on that?
Well, we don't know what happened with the GDT glitch. We know they had an internal problem. We know they've migrated the technology for the auction from a US-based provider back to New Zealand, and in-house basically. It might not be exactly in New Zealand, but in-house, and they're running the auctions in-house. So imagine a few of those bugs, especially with a 25-round auction. It might, it's longer than normal, so that might have upset a few of the codes in the back end. But apart from that, we're purely speculative on what actually broke the system. But they've printed the results. We've got them now. Hopefully the buyers are happy. But the market's definitely taking their time to understand what this means and what the break suggests. So that sort of thing was pretty interesting. The European question doesn't make a lot of sense, really. We know there's a lot of milk and there's a lot of product in Europe, but it could also be, there's a bit of seasonality here as well. So we see in the past, years that European buying on GDT auctions does pick up at this time of the year, so there could be a bit of that. But long story short, we're still a little bit amused as to why the buying's so aggressive.
So you'll have to really start digging into those numbers and make a few phone calls and try and figure some stuff out, Stewie.
Mate, I've got unfortunately, it's 4:30 in the afternoon here in Kelly, and I think I've got a long evening ahead of myself. So we are on the back foot on this one. But, from our perspective here in the US, we definitely know the US market's been squeezing over the last 3 weeks. Physical product has been hard to find on some commodities, and that's driven the futures market higher. We've seen a bit of that spill into the Oceania SGX market. We know, early in January that Chinese and Middle Eastern buyers, appeared on the doorstep for a few New Zealand exporters and helped to move a bit of product earlier than expected. The Middle East has really reacted to the uncertainty and geopolitical risk that has presented itself in January. So we've seen some dynamics move really quickly in the first, 5 weeks of 2026. And sort of that fear and momentum just keeps driving the market into a frenzy. So while it's really good for milk price in the sort of the current season, the long-term view has now gotten really murky, and that sort of the volatility is really driving into the market and to be honest, making it hard to do my job.
You'll get through, mate. You'll come up with something. Because it's been a hell of a start. I think, as we said earlier today, a couple of big 6% rises plus, and the one in the middle there, 1.5%. So it's been a hell of a start to 2026, that's for sure. Okay, so you're in California at the moment. There's some things going on there. What have you been up to?
Well, last week we were in the IDFA conference down in Palm Springs. Great place to host the conference. Some beautiful golf courses. So the place is littered with them. It's actually really impressive. But there,
Can I just interject there? Palm Springs and I'm sure there were some other sites as well, but you fixated on the golf. Fair enough.
Yeah. I'm a man of my word. And there for the golf. It was good. And then obviously market interaction too. So good to see the conversations and with everyone that we had there. But again, the frantic markets we're seeing now sort of started last week as well. So a lot of those conversations with contacts were, understanding why the market's doing what it's doing, confusion as to where we've got to from where we were just, weeks prior. And that sort of underlines this GDT event as well. People were just so confused. So that's sort of the theme of last week. And then I actually spent the weekend treating myself to a bit of hiking, and I got to the Joshua Tree National Park, which is pretty cool, and then did a 5-hour drive from there up to where I am now, the Central Valley, Visalia, and actually managed to nip out to Sequoia National Park as well and get a bit of a hike out there as well. So saw some very large trees, which are very cool, and soak up as many US national parks as I can while I've got the time to do it.
Yeah, you should definitely do that. That's a great thing to do, actually. We missed the national park that we were going to. It was too hot when we were over there, and we couldn't get in to most of the places that we were looking to. But so good on you for doing that. So what else event wise is on you? What are you in that place for?
Yeah, well, that's right. So next week we've got the Farm Show, the World Ag Show. So basically California's version of the Field Days. And with the fog that we've been having here in the valley in the last couple of days, it's going to feel a lot like the Field Days, I think, too. And they've actually forecast a bit of rain too. So I think minus red bands is going to have a real Field Days feel about it. And we're there to sort of catch up with, just like the Field Days, catch up with what the farmers are thinking, show them what the HighGround team's doing, and then also understand what their sentiment is, how they're feeling, sort of understand what the American farmer, especially the California farmer, is thinking about production, on-farm costs, all those sort of bits and pieces as they kick off their 26 calendar year as well, and just getting a bit of understanding what's going on. And then for this little old Kiwi, sort of understand the scale and what goes on at these farm shows, and get a bearing of the Californian market a little bit better.
Yeah, I love that you were able to find a connection between California and Hamilton as well, and that would be the top.
Hey, someone's got to be out there, back in Hamilton. It doesn't have a lot going for it, but there's fog and rain in the Field Days.
Oh, fantastic. Very good. Well, listen, I know you've got your work cut out, so I appreciate you joining us twice in one day, Stu Davison. Thank you for the breakdown there. And as you say, you'll know more. So when we talk in a couple of weeks at the next auction, you'll be able to, we can have a good old deep dive into that once the analysis is complete. So good on you. Cheers, bud.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it. Hopefully we can have a good rundown for the listeners then, and we'll be away laughing hopefully by that point. Good to chat, mate. Talk to you next time.
Right, here's a really interesting one for you. Untouched World is an ecologically sustainable clothing company. It was launched nearly 30 years ago, and it was founded by Peri Drysdale, who I'm delighted to have joined the show now. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, so 30 years, eh? What do you think when you reflect back on that?
Well, actually, it's longer than 30 years. It's 30 years since we started the Untouched World brand, which was focused around sustainability. But I actually started the business in 1981, which is even longer. I was in nappies then, of course, and couldn't talk. But it's an amazing length of time, and it just happens, really. You wake up one day and it stretches back before you.
Yeah, one of those things as well, when you were looking at, doing the kind of the sort of sustainable fashion, if you like. I mean, the thing about that is that wasn't exactly what you would call in vogue at the time, really, was it? It is now, but not back then.
Oh, look, it wasn't in vogue then, and it hasn't been in vogue until really recently. I remember asking a PR person to do some PR about what we were doing. It was about sort of late 90s. And she just said, Peri, aren't you before your time? And I said, well, look, if someone isn't before their time, there can't ever be a time. So someone, it's not ideal to be first, but in this case, someone had to be.
Exactly. Now, you've also got this thing called the Untouched World Foundation. When did that start? What does that do?
That started in, we started working on it in year 2000. We spent 2 years figuring out how we could best make a dent in the issues that we saw, sustainability-focused issues. And what it does is leadership for a sustainable future programs for young adults. And so we have kids from 17 to 25, basically, that go on these immersive programs, and they're all-consuming, and they're amazing, absolutely amazing. And that was picked up by the UNESCO as one of the 3 most impactful programs there are. And our idea for doing that was that we could only do so much through the company. And, from a little country way at the bottom of the world and run by a woman to boot, which, also isn't necessarily the most ideal. And so we tried to think about how we could move the dial, really, and we needed to get some help to move the dial. So getting some of that help was to get these young people aware of what's going on, and give them the tools to pull out their own leadership potential. So, and it was something that was done for me when I was a young person, and I thought that, this is a way that we could make partly the biggest impact. The other side of that was that we figured that we needed to get people on board who had more reach than we did. So in those days, it was people like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and so on. We figured if we could get them over the line with what needed to happen, then they would do the work for us. For us.
Did you get them over the line?
We did, actually. Yeah. There's a bit of a funny story about Bill Clinton. I think about his 3rd trip to New Zealand. I asked him if he would come on board the foundation as an honorary trustee. And he looked at me and he said, I can do better than that. When he went back to USA, I got a letter from him saying, would I please attend the Clinton Global Initiative? I'm not sure if you know what that is, but it's a big meeting that happened mostly every year. And they certainly had all of the big influences around the world at that meeting. And anyway, I looked at the date and I thought, I don't think I can get to that. I'm supposed to be somewhere else. Then the phone went, and it was in days of the landline, and it was somebody from Bill's office saying, have you got the letter and can you come? And then I said, well, actually, no, I don't think I can. I'm going to be somewhere else in the world at that time. And then, so that was the end of that conversation. And then not long later, there was another phone call saying, President Clinton wants to know if the date was changed, would you come? And the date was changed, and yes, I did go. And it was really worthwhile. Yeah.
Wow. They shifted the date for you. That's impressive.
Well, it's a good story, but I think they were going to shift the date anyway, or they were thinking about shifting the date anyway.
Oh, you can claim it, Peri. Don't worry about it.
I'm claiming. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So when we're talking, I mean, what appeals to people that high up the global food chain, if you like? What's the appeal? Why would people be interested in what you're doing?
I think they realise that the trajectory that the planet's on has to be changed, or had to be changed. So I was travelling around the world from quite an early stage in the life of the company. And it was before mobile phones. And I would sit in the back of the plane and read all the newspapers that had been stacked up by the door from the different origins of the passengers that were going on the plane and the places they were going to. And in those days, there was an incredible amount of, lauding, L-A-U-D, of countries that were really booming GDP-wise. Japan was one of those at the time, but also companies that were doing really, really well. But I realised that there was no conversation whatever about the impact of this growth. And that really worried me, because I was travelling mostly once a year to all of these countries, and I could see environmental change going on as I travelled from visit to visit. And I just thought, people don't realise what's happening. And I'd come back to New Zealand and I'd worry about it, and I thought, what on earth can I do? And I went round that circle of, well, I don't want to make it worse, so maybe I'll just hang up the clogs and not do anything, and not run, a company in this industry. But it wasn't just this industry; it was everything. So they get it, they understand it. Yeah.
So it was the first fashion company in the world to be recognised by the United Nations for sustainability. What is it that you do that has garnered such accolades, if you like, and also, caught the attention of people? What is it that's...
Well, it's really, really comprehensive what we do. It's like 360 degrees thinking about the impacts that we're having on the planet. So, it starts with people, and it's right down to little things that we do. It doesn't matter how much you dig into what we do, there's more there. And so I just think about for instance, once a week we have a whole company meeting, and it's just and on a roster, somebody, including, there's 100 odd people here, somebody has to give a sustainability tip as to, how to help make less of a negative impact on the environment. And that goes right through to sort of high regional things, thinking about how we source our raw materials, how we manufacture them, how we're selling them, and how to do packaging, and all of that. There's a huge amount of thought that goes into there. Even into our cafe, where we stopped letting people take coffees away in disposable cups, because they're actually not that disposable. And that, that was way before anyone else was doing anything like that.
Right. So each week someone comes in with a new tip. Is there a danger, though, of getting too far down the rabbit hole? Is there such a thing in the sustainability space, if you like?
Well, the rabbit hole's got lots of runners leading off it, and I don't think that is a way to get too far down the rabbit hole, because you're measuring everything as you go. You're measuring the impact, you're measuring the financial impact, you're measuring the environmental impact. And it can get a bit overwhelming. The things you want to do that, can't do that because, but it has to be done. We can't just put our head in the sand, can we? And think it's all going to be all right.
Tell me about the whole farm to fashion idea. Was that something that has always been pretty forefront of mind for you and the company?
Well, I grew up on a beautiful farm up there at Kaya Gorge in Canterbury, and I would have loved to have stayed there. I was a girl, and in those days the boy did the farming, and I was concerned when I saw rivers getting dirty, lakes getting dirty, all the chemicals being applied to the land, and on the other hand, the actual crystal clear beauty of the place where I grew up on. And I just thought, we need to do something different. And I figured that fashion, although I didn't ever think of myself as being in the fashion industry, we started out doing knitwear. And I figured out that fashion is like a chameleon. And when you see a picture up on the wall, you don't, after a while, you stop seeing that picture. But the advantage of fashion is that because it's changing all the time, it reintroduces a way of communicating with your customers about why you've done some things and what you've done and what the impact is. So that grew really over time. Yeah.
And wool has probably always been a thing that, you've probably known, given your upbringing in that rural setting, the benefits of wool. That quite amazingly, I have to say, this is one of the really fascinating things that I've found out in recent years, is that while here in New Zealand, we kind of generally tend to know what the benefits of wool are from all sorts of reference points and points of view, it's not quite the case in the rest of the world. I just assumed, and that was silly.
Yeah, look, it's just the most amazing fibre. And you're right, it's just not known in the rest of the world. And there's already big money behind the synthetic powerhouses, the synthetic manufacturers of, artificial fibres. And they're doing a pretty good job of trying to enlighten people about how good synthetic is. And that, that's a real worry. You put a washing machine load of synthetics on and you're flushing about 700,000 microfibers into the environment. We've all got microfibers floating around in our bodies, and it's not good.
The price and all of this stuff as well, the economics of it over the years, I imagine that you've had to make some decisions that weren't necessarily the wisest if you were to show your accountant, but I guess you've got to stick to your guns, right?
Yeah, I do say to people, you've got to use a bit of balance. So I remember years ago, we had made a beautiful tailored coat out of a wool fabric, and we wanted to line it. And in those days, silk lining was incredibly expensive. And we had this, I remember having this big discussion in-house about whether we would put the silk lining in or put a synthetic lining in it. And we ended up putting the synthetic lining in, the reason being that we figured that if we put the synthetic lining in, that would price it away from pretty much anyone buying it. And we were actually better to have people buying the wool garment with all of the downstream benefits that garment delivers, the way that we look after the people and what we give back with. And now we have the natural lining, but sometimes you just got to wait for these things to be available. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like anything, you've got to, there's compromises to be made along the way, right?
Yeah, it's not a straight line.
Exactly. That's the point, right? The sourcing of materials, though, I mean, that's, the raw materials. So where's that predominantly done with most of your garments?
Well, we manufacture around about 96%, I think, here in New Zealand. We source most of our wool from here, actually from very near to here, from a station called Big Thorn. And we, anything else that we don't source, we track and trace how it's made, where it's made, what it's made of. And that takes a bit of work. Yeah.
Tell me, when people talk about the provenance of products, and in this case, we're obviously talking about clothes, I'm not sure. You tell me what your experience is in this. Do people actually care? We're told people care. Do they care?
They do to a degree, and there's always there's a break point. So if you wanted to just wear garments made from a country, let's say it's New Zealand, and you were balancing out whether you had garment A from another country to New Zealand and it was like 10 times the price, you're not going to buy it. So that's always a factor. But it was really interesting. Like, I got a good feel of the power of the country brand when I was 6 years old, actually. I was sitting at the kitchen table at that farm where I grew up, and my mother was opening up the mail bag with these big mail bags with big clunky padlocks on them. And this little box wrapped in brown paper tumbled out of her mail bag. And inside it was some little red shoes that she'd bought for me to wear to a wedding across the river. And she turned one of the shoes over, and there were 3 little words on that shoe stamped into the sole, and it was made in England. And she said, that means it'll be good quality. Mm. And probably now that doesn't mean it would be good quality, but what struck me as a 6-year-old was that of the country brand, and that was one of the things that went into the idea to make a New Zealand clothing brand.
That's a very interesting anecdote, and it goes back to something you said earlier about the fact that you manufacture the vast bulk of things here and source the material from here as well. How difficult has that been, and the temptation to take a lot of this stuff overseas? I'm sure was been many discussions about that over the years.
There have been many discussions, but we've needed, first of all and foremost, we needed really good quality because our customers demand that from us, and we want to deliver it to them. But we also need them to have environmental and social, criteria that they meet. And it's actually quite hard to find manufacturers offshore that meet everything we need. You'd be surprised. So we do a little bit of manufacturing offshore, and we will do more as more places come on stream. We have a delightful little enterprise that we're associated with called Joya, which is based in Kolkata in India. And the guy that founded that, and he rang me one day and he said, look, could you help me? I'm needing to set up an enterprise for some people who desperately need some income. And he'd walked into this sort of shanty on the river, and there was a family, multi-generational family living in this 9 square meters. And the father was rocking on the floor in absolute desperation. He'd lost his job, and he had borrowed money. As it turned out, it wasn't a lot of money, but he'd borrowed money for the oldest daughter's dowry. And when he lost his job, he wouldn't be able to pay that money back. And so he was facing going to prison and his family being beaten every day while he was in prison till the money was paid back, or putting the younger daughter out into the sexual trade. So Ed had the foresight to try and help these people get some enterprise going. And now that enterprise makes all of our organic cotton T-shirts. We call it Project U, for the Untouched World brand. And, they make beautiful quality and they're lovely to deal with. And, there are wins if you take the time to develop them.
Wow, that's an incredible story. Just one of so many examples. I'm sure you've been able to help one. Yeah, goodness me, that's incredible, isn't it? What are the big bugbears for you still remaining in the textile industry at the moment, Peri?
Synthetics. Synthetics are a real problem, and they creep into. You've got to be really careful what they creep into, and the awareness out there. There's a belief that if you recycle nylon, for instance, then that's okay because it's recycled. But it's not, because it's still shedding microfibers into the environment. And if you blend that nylon with non-oil-based materials, you can't then recycle them after that. So that's a huge one for us. There's the quality issues, which are huge in the industry, the working conditions, which are just really upsetting across the whole industry. And I'll make a note there, quality, the overproduction. I mean, you've probably seen the pictures of the mantles of clothes that are being shipped off under the guise of being, a good donation. And they're dirty, they're ripped, and then what do those poor countries do with them? They end up being, buried in not very deeply in sand, as whole mountains of clothes that can't be used for anything. So it is really worrying. It really is.
That's an extraordinary scenario when you look at it like that, when you take a bird's eye view of it. Do you feel, you're doing your part, obviously. There's lots of other companies that are also, sharing a similar philosophy that you have been doing for many years. But really, when you look at it, do you feel like you're just pushing shit uphill, Peri, for lack of a better phrase?
Well, sometimes you do, and sometimes you think, what am I doing? I was at Auckland recently for fishing. Well, not recently. I remember it was in a hotel on the waterfront, fashion week, and I looked out the window and I could see all these, it was sort of peak travel time, all these cars snaking over the bridge, and before it and after it, just thousands of cars. And I thought, what am I trying to do? It's just not making, it doesn't make a dent. But then I come full circle and I thought, nobody makes a dent, and there won't be a change, or has to be a change.
So you just got to keep forging ahead. Very good. The Untouched World Foundation, go and check that out online, people. And Peri, I have to say thank you for giving us so much of your time today. I really do appreciate it. It's been a really interesting chat, so thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget, we've got new episodes every Wednesday, Friday and Sunday. And don't forget, of course, to like, comment and subscribe to the Rex Daily Podcast.